Hey, how's it going? I'm Tim Holtz, Creative Director for Ranger, and today I'm going to take you through some distress stains. It's a brand new product for us, and I really want to take you through and show you some tips and tricks on how to use this really cool product. Let's get going. Alright, so I want to take you through and talk about distress stains, especially when you first get them, because you will need to prime them. So when you unscrew the top, you're going to notice that this has a soft fabric top on it. It starts out white, and this fabric top underneath it actually has a valve, and so when you first get it, that valve is actually clicked shut. This way that product's not going to leak in transit from us to the store. So when you get it, you want to go ahead and take your finger and simply press down in the center, and you're going to feel and hear a click that's in there, and that's just going to mean that the bottle is open and ready to use. So to prime it, you're simply going to flip it upside down, working on your craft sheet or a piece of scrap paper. You're going to press down, and you want to apply pressure to the side of the bottle. Applying pressure is what's going to saturate the tip of this with stain. Now sometimes there's going to be a little bit of air in the bottle, so if you go and press down and you apply pressure and you get a lot of stain coming out at once, that's not going to last forever. That's just the air that was in the bottle that built up. Other than that, just kind of keep going, and that's just going to work it out, and that's what's going to keep that tip saturated. And this tip will never dry up, which is really nice because this is a completely fluid stain. If I want more stain to come out, I can press down, and while I'm holding down, apply pressure to the side of the bottle. You can't really squeeze it much because it's a hard density bottle, but by applying pressure, look at how much stain can actually come out of that bottle. So that's really a very, very simple way to control the stains. Let's go and talk about some techniques. First of all, the great thing about the distress stains is that this is a fluid version of distress ink, and a lot of people confuse these, let's say, with the distress re-inkers. Now, distress re-inkers are a concentrated dye, and so if you were to put a drop of distress re-inker onto paper, it would basically just turn black because it's so saturated with color. Then the problem you have if you decide, well, okay, well, I'll thin out that re-inker with water, then your color becomes too translucent. And the nice thing about the stains is they give you the great intensity of the distress color, but in a completely fluid version. So when I'm working on a tag, I can take the stain, for example, this is walnut stain, and I can apply it directly over a large surface. And that's what makes these so simple to use, because it doesn't replace the ink pad at all, but it does allow me to go in and ink up a large surface really quick. Now, because it's distress, it still does all the cool things distress does, meaning if I want to build the intensity of the color or the saturation, I can go over it again, and because it's translucent, you can see how much darker it gets just by going in adding another layer. But it's also reactive with water. So here I'm just going to go in, just take some water. I'm just going to kind of spit it out of the bottle a little bit just to show you, because the more you add this, you can see how that ink does that great distress wicking and move all over the place, but it still maintains our color integrity. These colors don't break down because, again, it's distress just in a fluid version. So that's some of the great things you can do as far as basic application, but then it starts getting into other applications. Let me just wipe this up. For example, what if I want to mix colors? What if I want to take several colors and mix them? Well, you can mix them right onto a piece of paper. If I wanted to go in, let's say with some broken china, for example, and put some of that down, but then I want to go in and add a little bit of walnut stain to it, and then I want to go back to broken china and mix that. You can mix that right on the paper, but keep in mind that you're still going to layer your colors. Another way to do it is to take your stains and actually put it right onto the craft sheet, and because this is fluid, again, I'm pressing down and I'm applying pressure to the side of the bottle to get some of that stain out. And you can go in with different colors. The thing you really want to remember when you're doing this particular technique is to not swipe the stain through another color of stain. Because this is fluid, it would suck right up into the bottle, and you don't want that to happen. So here I'm just going to go in, add a little bit of just some different colors. I can kind of go around that way. Now again, because it's fluid already, I don't need to spray it with water. If you tried the wrinkle-free with the ink pad, you know that after you put your pad onto the craft sheet, you have to spray it with water. The stain, you don't have to do that. So now I can take a tag, a paper, anything I want, and literally just start wiping through this, get some color on there, and again, because it's distress, I can go back in, spritz this if I want, just to get a cool background. And then I would go in and dry this with a heat tool. So that's a whole other way that you can work with these stains. And again, you can see that the color maintains its color integrity. Stays pretty cool. So set that one aside, wipe it up. Now let's talk about other surfaces. One of my favorites, of course, is craft resist. This is a craft paper that has a black image printed, but also a varnish image printed. And this image, this shiny image you'll see here, will actually resist anything you put on it, stain, ink, anything like that. But with the distress stain, it's so cool to go over and ink this paper. I mean, look how easy that is. I'm pushing down, I'm applying pressure to the side of the bottle, and I'm going to put that on. And one thing you're going to notice, especially if you are working with craft, because it starts out as brown paper, the first time you put the stains down, it gets really splotchy. It doesn't look too good. But trust me, when this starts to dry, and you can see out here that it's drying, it becomes much lighter, and as it dries, it becomes that light, vibrant color. In fact, let me grab a heat tool, and I'll go in and dry this, just so I can show you the color. Now, when you are drying the Craft Resist, one of the cool things is you do not have to worry about this varnish, because this is not embossing. This is actually a varnish that's on the paper, and you don't have to worry about that remelting. It's not affected by heat, which is really cool. So I'm just going to go with my heat tool, just dry that, just to show you. I mean, look at how much more vibrant that has become, that color. It's really, really nice, where you get kind of that light blue effect instead of that dark saturation. But of course, if I wanted to go in and make that deeper, I could go in with another layer of that stain, put that down, and dry it again. So you could always go in with saturation and just keep building and building and building those colors. Pretty cool. Alright, so outside of the papers, let's get into some other surfaces. What about something like grunge board or chipboard? If I want to take grunge board or chipboard, let's go and we'll take some fired brick here. If I wanted to obviously go in and distress this, if I was going to do this with my ink pad, that would take me quite a bit of time and some ink just to make it that colorful on something so porous like grunge and chipboard. But with the stains, easy. One pass over there, you can go in. Again, I can swipe that on. If I wanted to go around, create a shadow, I could do that and still go back with that same color and just work that in. And look how I can get that shaded effect. Pretty cool with the stains. Alright, so again, I would be drying these. You could dry them with a heat tool or let them air dry, but I'm just really showing you surface application. So the next one, let's talk about other porous things like trim and ribbon. I mean, there's all sorts of trims, ideology trimmings, there's all types of different lace if you wanted to do that. There's even things like flowers, these are Prima flowers. You can stain anything that's going to be porous. So, for example, if you wanted ribbon and we wanted to take a ribbon and stain it, I'm just going to take my stains and go right across that ribbon. If I wanted to, again, make it a little more antiqued along the edge, go in with a little bit of color and just swipe that on. Now, keep in mind that the more porous the surface is, the more pressure you might have to apply on the bottle, because remember, that's going to be taking up that stain. But so simple to go ahead and colorize that ribbon. I'm just going to dry this real quick just to show you. It's really cool. It's a great way to colorize all of those scraps of ribbon or things that we might have that we want to go in and match the card. So I'm just going to dry this up just using a heat tool. Doesn't take long because, again, this is water-based. And I want to say that it's water-based because even though I'm doing things like fabric, remember, this is never going to be permanent. So you wouldn't want to do this on a piece of clothing and expect to be able to go outside in it, because once this gets wet, this is reactive. It would all wash out. So really great way to do things like ribbon, trims, again, your flowers, feathers, anything that's going to take some ink. Another cool thing, things like canvas. So our sticky back canvas, which you can die cut this. This is just a shape that we die cut to match the dress form. You can go in with any of the colors. We'll even take one of the lighter colors like Spun Sugar. Really great to go in and be able to distress fabric with that color. What if it's something printed, like ruler ribbon, or if you had some printed canvas, for example? Well, here's the thing that I like to show about the stains. Because they are stained and they're water-based, it gives you some work time. So, for example, here I'm going to take walnut and I'm going to go right over that ruler ribbon. And if the canvas picks it up, you'll see that I basically covered everything. It looks like it's ruined. But because it is distress and it is that fluid version, while this is wet, I can just go over this with a towel and wipe off some of that excess, but it still gives me that really cool distressed look on printed fabric. So that's really easy to do, and it stains everything that's porous. Alright, so talk about some other things. This one's really cool. Crackle paint. So you take distressed crackle. This could be any color of crackle paint. In this case, this happens to be rock candy. Here I've taken rock candy crackle and gone over grunge board and painted it. Just right on the plain grunge, gone in with rock candy. So there is that crackled layer that has dried. Now, because again we have our fluid stains, I can go right over this and you will see how that ink works right into the cracks. And you can see that really, really cool effect. Let me bring that in. Pretty cool. Alright, so Last thing I want to show you with stains is working on a background. Let me take a background real quick. I think I'll go in with some antique linen. I love this because antique linen on a tag, my goodness, you're never able to get antique linen on antique linen paper, but with the stains, I can go in and do that. I'm just going to cover that up. Go ahead and just dry this real quick just to give me a background. And I love how when this dries, it does give you that great mottled effect that distress has. It's another thing about the stains. You just put them on and they're going to take all those different tonal properties, light and dark, and if you wanted more of a reaction, we could have spritzed this with some water. So I'll put that on there. But here's the last thing I'm going to show you about stains. A stamp. That's right, using a stamp. So if I want to go ahead and take this and use it with a stamp, I can go in, I'll pick the color, and this one I'll take Vintage Photo. Now this time I want to actually get the tip of this saturated, so I'm going to tap it on my craft sheet to get it nice and wet, because I don't really want to do that on the stamp. But then I'm going to able just to go ahead and rub that right onto a stamp. It could be a rubber stamp or a clear stamp. Put that stain right onto the stamp, stamp it out, and I can go in and dry it. And this is going to give me that really cool watercolor effect, as if you were going to ink up a stamp from your ink pad and spritz it with water. You don't need to do that with the stains. Just put it on, stamp it. And I just love the random effect that this gives. So I'm just going to dry that just to show you. So that's going to kind of be our stamped look. Then I want to be able to also go in and show you how this is still going to be reactive. So now I'm going to take this and spritz it with water. Because it's distress, it's still going to react, and you get that really great wicking property out of that. I'll dry it again. So you'll see that by getting it wet, it really kind of spreads out the color, especially that image. Gives it a truly distressed look. So this is what I love the most about stains, is the fact that it's everything you love about distress. It's just in a fluid version. So this certainly doesn't eliminate it, because all these pieces that I've gone in with my stains, I would still go back with my distress pads and my ink blending tool and do all those other shading and adding color to it, especially like on something like this. If I wanted to go in and just add with the blending tool, kind of shade some of that color, I'd be able to go in and do that. So hopefully those are going to be some ideas of all the different surfaces, the easy application of working with distress stain.